5th-round pick for Deebo Samuel makes a whole lot of sense, right? I just don't think the Texans should be continuing to trade for all the wide receivers that are available, especially if they're in their late 20s. So Deebo Samuel is now a member of the Washington Commanders. They traded a 5th-round pick for him to get him from San Francisco. Samuel, his numbers are down. Is that a byproduct of a disappointing year for the 49ers? I don't know. But when you see a trade for a 5th-round pick, it always is going to make you think that your team should have done the same thing. And I know a lot of Texans fans are looking at them and saying to themselves, oh, you got to trade for that wide receiver, even though you did last year, because you want to trade for wide receivers. By the way, T. Higgins just got the franchise tag from the Cincinnati Bengals. That does not necessarily mean he will be a Bengal next year, but he has now been franchise tagged. Teams have until tomorrow at 3 p.m. to place the franchise tag on pending free agents. So we'll see if the Bengals are actually able to get extensions for Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, among others. I'm still skeptical, but hey, at the very least, they're being less cheap than they used to be. But to bring it back to Deebo Samuel, and I already a couple of texts here. One text asks the following question and makes the following statement from the 936. Yes, the Texans are dumb for not trading a 5th-round pick for Deebo Samuel. Dumb AF. I don't think it's dumb to not trade for this guy. Samuel is a fun player. The fact that he can be used as a running back and as a wide receiver is cool. I think he's the only receiver to have 20 rushing touchdowns and 20 receiving touchdowns ever. For whatever reason, whenever he is described by write-ups, like the one that I read, those write-ups always make a point of calling him a Swiss Army knife. All capitalized, too. I don't know if Swiss Army knives are such proper nouns that all 3 words become capitalized, but he's the Swiss Army knife of the NFL. That would be fun to have on your team. And a 5th-round pick ain't much, because who are you generally getting in the 5th round of a draft? No one is going to contribute. You might get somebody occasionally, but for the most part, I mean, you're much more likely to draft a player that you'll cut by the end of his rookie contract than you are to find somebody who is going to be a consistent starter for you. And I mean, that's just being a starter, let alone being a great player. So 5th-round pick for Deebo Samuel makes a whole lot of sense, right? I just don't think the Texans should be continuing to trade for all the wide receivers that are available, especially if they're in their late 20s. And Samuel's 29, and the way that he plays, he is a violent player who is, I think, at his best when he's running through contact. I don't think that's going to make the offense better, especially considering where the offense was last year, where run blocking, not good, and pass blocking, not good. You got to go get an offensive lineman. Can you get one for a 5th-round pick? Probably not, but that's what I think they should be prioritizing. From the 832 on the most interactive sports talk show in Houston, Paul Gallant Show, a texter asks, how would the Texans afford Deebo Samuel under the cap? They would have to make a bunch of restructures happen right now. So I'm not going to explain the math to you because, first off, I'm terrible at explaining math on the fly. But also, I don't know the specific contracts that the Texans would look at and say, all right, let's retinker this one and this one and this one. Giving Derek Stingley an extension would definitely help. But it would be very, very hard for the Texans to fit a Deebo Samuel or a Brandon Ayuk, who theoretically not off the table for trade, under the cap. It would be tough. There are ways to do it, though. From the 936. On second thought, D'Amico probably knows him. If he didn't want him, then F him. Well, I'm not sure I'm going to go say F him, but I understand that line of thinking. Okay, D'Amico worked with Deebo. If he wanted him, he would have banged the drum for him. But also remember this, that when D'Amico was in San Francisco, he was largely with the defensive side of the ball. That's not to say he never had any interactions with Deebo Samuel, but I doubt he had many. From the 713 on the most interactive sports talk show in Houston, the Texans don't need a wide receiver. They need an offensive line. Stroud couldn't get the wide receiver the ball in time. Yes, 100%. 100%. So I don't think it was a mistake that the Texans passed on trading for Deebo Samuel over the weekend. I just want everyone to relax and chill just a little bit when it comes to insert name. I know you want the big name. You want the big splash. Just remember where the big splash got you this past year. I mean, the Stephon Diggs trade worked out, and it still was a failure, which is a weird thing to say, but he looked good. He played well, but he tore his ACL, and you gave up a second-round pick for him, and now you don't have that second-round pick. Were you more likely to get more out of Stephon Diggs than you were out of the second-round pick? Sure, but now he's a free agent. He might not be coming back. Do you want to continue to just trade draft picks for wide receivers and then pay those wide receivers? Or do you want your young quarterback, who should be raising the level of play around, to get the most out of young guys that don't need to be the league's best receivers? I'd rather have the latter. Fifth-round pick wouldn't have been much for Deebo Samuel, and I'm sure they could have figured out a way to make it work out under the cap at some point, though. It would probably take a while for them to get to that point, but I have no issue with the Texans passing on trading for Deebo Samuel.